Let's be real for a sec. We have all been there. You're staring at a book, your eyes are glazing over, and you're just wishing there was some kind of magic wand you could wave to make studying feel, well, less like a total chore. But what if I told you that you could actually get hooked on learning? I mean, what if the whole process could be so engaging, maybe even a little addictive, that you actually started looking forward to it? It's a pretty wild idea, and it's exactly what we're going to get into. For years, there's been this one big buzzword that seems to promise exactly that: gamification. You know, the idea of turning work and learning into a game. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? But here's the big question. What if this super popular solution isn't the solution at all? What if it's actually making things worse? Okay, let's break it down. To really understand where this all goes wrong, we first have to get why the promise of gamification is so tempting in the first place. So, what is it officially? Well, the definition is pretty simple. It's all about taking the stuff that makes video games so incredibly compelling, the points, the challenges, that awesome feeling of leveling up, and just slapping them onto things that aren't games, like your job or your workout, or of course, your study habits. The goal is pretty clear: get you more engaged and keep you motivated. So, how does this usually play out in a real world? Well, the most common approach basically boils down to just three things. You can even remember it with the acronym PBL: points, badges, and leaderboards. Finish a chapter, you get some points. Master a skill, boom, you get a shiny new badge. Do it faster than everyone else, you climb to the top of the leaderboard. It seems so logical, right? I mean, this is what drives tons of popular games. But this is exactly where the illusion starts to crack. Because when you really start to dig into the track record, especially in a complicated field like education, that big promise of fun just completely falls apart. And look, this isn't just some small problem. Some of the most brilliant and respected people in the world of game design are also its biggest critics. Take Ian Bogost, a famous game designer and researcher. He didn't mince words. He argues that this whole simple PBL thing is basically just a shallow marketing trick that completely misunderstands what actually makes games so meaningful and fun in the first place. And when we look at the facts, his point really starts to hit home. And honestly, the problem is way bigger than just gamification. It's tied into this whole world of educational technology, or ed tech. You've seen the ads, right? They always promise these revolutionary, personalized learning experiences. But the reality, the real world results are, well, they're often pretty terrible. So the really fascinating question is, why does it fail so often? Well, the reasons are pretty consistent and they tell a story. First up, you've got this thing called hardware dumping. This is the classic mistake of thinking that just throwing technology at a problem, like giving a kid a laptop, will magically make them learn better. The One Laptop per Child initiative was a perfect example. Great intentions, but it didn't really improve learning outcomes. Then there's the jaw-dropping waste of money. Back in 2013, the LA Unified School District spent $1 billion to give every student a tablet. The whole thing was a massive failure that actually ended with an FBI investigation. Crazy, right? But this is where it gets a little more personal and even kind of creepy. All your learning data, every right and wrong answer, how long you take on a question, it can all be collected and sold as prediction products to guess and even influence what you'll do next. The bottom line is, so many of these systems aren't designed to help you become a curious, creative learner. Nope, they're designed to nudge and control your behavior, turning learning into just a series of hoops you jump through to get a little digital treat. Okay, so that's all pretty bleak. It almost feels like the very things that were supposed to make learning fun are actually sucking the life out of it. So if this surface level game of points and badges doesn't work, then what does? What's the real secret to making learning genuinely engaging for the long haul? To find that answer, We have to stop looking at the shiny leaderboards and the flashy badges. We have to go deeper into the actual psychology of what makes us as humans tick. We've got to understand the engine that really drives our motivation. And here it is. The real secret isn't about adding a superficial layer of game stuff on top of a boring task. It's about designing the task itself so that it's naturally motivating. And decades of psychological research tell us that true, lasting motivation doesn't come from the outside. It comes from fulfilling three universal, basic psychological needs that we are all born with. This powerful idea is called self-determination theory, and trust me, it's a total game changer. It says we all have three core needs. To make it super easy, just think ACR. First up is A for autonomy. This is our deep need to feel like we're in control, that we're making our own choices, that we're in the driver's seat of our own lives. Next is C for competence. You know that incredible feeling when you finally nail a difficult problem or master a new skill? That's competence. It's the need to feel effective. And finally, R is for relatedness. This is our fundamental need as social creatures to feel connected to other people, to feel like we belong to a group. When you have a learning experience that feeds these three needs, you don't need points and badges. The motivation just comes from within. Okay, that all sounds great in theory, right? But what does it actually look like in the real world? Let's check out this really fascinating study that put these two big ideas, competition versus cooperation, in a head-to-head battle. So, these researchers used an online learning platform called StarQuest, and what they did was brilliant. They gave two groups of people the exact same learning tasks, but they framed the experience in two totally different ways. The work was identical, only the psychological wrapper around it changed. And this picture just says it all. Over on the left, you see the classic gamification approach, a competitive leaderboard. It's all about your rank, about being number one, about beating other people. It's designed to trigger that external desire to win. But on the right, they took the very same tasks and framed them cooperatively. Instead of a leaderboard pitting people against each other, they had a shared project health goal. Every single person's contribution helped the entire group's health bar go up. This was designed to feed that need for relatedness we were just talking about. So what was the result? This is where it gets so interesting. The competitive group, the ones with the leaderboard, they actually made about 18% more posts. So at first glance, you might think, see, competition works better. But not so fast. When the researchers looked at a different, maybe more important metric, the total amount of time people spent engaged on the platform, the cooperative group was slightly ahead. Think about what that means. Competition might get you a higher quantity of quick actions, but the cooperative frame seemed to foster a deeper, more sustained engagement. People were willing to invest more of their time when they felt like they were all in it together. Which brings us to the most important part of all of this. This is great info, but how can we actually take these ideas and use them in our own lives? This is your new playbook for making learning something you actually want to do. The huge mental shift you have to make is this. Stop trying to gamify learning. Forget about just adding points to things. Instead, your goal should be to design your study process from the ground up so that it naturally supports those core psychological needs: autonomy, competence, and relatedness. And this right here, this is the single most important takeaway. It's about changing the fundamental question you ask yourself. The old approach, the flawed PBL model, it asks, how can I add points, badges, and leaderboards? It's all on the surface. The new playbook, the powerful ACR model, it asks a completely different and much better set of questions. How can I build in more choice for myself? How can I create a real sense of progress and mastery? And how can I connect with other people on this journey? This is the framework that leads to real motivation. So the next time you sit down to learn something, don't immediately look for an app with a leaderboard. Just pause for a second and ask yourself these three simple questions. How can I give myself more autonomy in this? Maybe that means you choose which topic to study first, or you decide how you want to take notes. How can I build my competence? Maybe you break huge chapter into tiny bite-sized challenges that you can actually conquer, giving you that amazing feeling of progress. And how can I find some relatedness? Could you form a small study group, find an online forum, or even just commit to explaining what you learned to a friend? Because when you start doing that, you're not just making learning fun, you're unlocking the powerful, lasting motivation that was already inside you all along.